Hello, my name is Dr. Kim Crivet, owner of North Star Veterinary Hospital, and I'd like to introduce Amanda and Catherine from Steuben, and they are going to show us proper saddle fitting, and it can be used for English and Western, the points that they will be going through, and I am going to show that they're going to show the proper way to saddle fit, and what I'm going to do is when you have an improper saddle fit, how that affects your horse, affects you, and affects your ride with your horse, whether you're trail riding or you are working your horse in with cows, or whether you're working your horse over fences and eventing. So please stay tuned and enjoy the commercial.
The rural American lifestyle. It's how we work, and it's how we play. It's how we learn and how we enjoy the finer things in life. How we take care of our animals and tend to the land. It's a way of life. Has been for hundreds of years. Now there's a whole new way for rural America to watch TV.
Hi, my name is Amanda Anderson. I am a saddle fitter, both for my own company, saddlefitting.us, as well as Steuben North America. My schooling is, I spent 3 years apprenticing to a master saddler in Germany, and I've also go to the UK and back to Germany every year for training. I've been with Steuben since 2013, and I've been a full-time saddle fitter since 2005. I'm certified in flocking, fitting, and most major repairs. My website is saddlefitting.us. I think the most important thing you need to start with are the muscles that are involved in saddle fitting. There's 3 main muscles. The first one we're going to talk about is the trapezius, which is drawn in blue here. It runs from approximately the base of the withers down into the scapula and up the neck. We have the same muscle on our own bodies. Catherine here is going to show us. Turn around for me. On us, the trapezius runs from the base of the neck at the ears down to the shoulders, and then it comes down into the back and attaches here, just like on the horse. For horses as well as for humans, it's what we call a stability muscle or an accessory muscle, which is different than a working muscle. So if you think about it, a working muscle is like the biceps. I can carry a lot of weight, feed bags with my biceps. However, when I'm carrying a backpack or a heavy purse and I put it on my trapezius, it always hurts. So now they've gotten smart and done backpacks with waist cinches so that we can carry the weight on our hips. Because if I put a lot of pressure here on her, it hurts. Similarly with the horse, if I put a lot of pressure here, he hollows his back, which goes into the function of this muscle. This muscle is designed to stabilize the spine. You have the cervical spine that goes into the thoracic spine. The spinal column is extremely important for life. If you break it, you're dead. The ribs attach into the spine approximately right here. And so you'll see that where the ribs come in, you've got very bony prominences called the spinous processes. You can feel them on your own back. They're the little nubs. On humans, they're very small. And on certain breeds of horses, they're very small, like Shetland ponies or Cobb-style horses. But anything thoroughbred or Dutch or leaner, the spinous processes are extremely tall, and they're very sensitive. I don't know if you've ever banged your shin on a table where you've had bone contacting onto metal, but I've seen stars, and it's not pretty. Same with the saddle. Anything hurting him here, he's obviously reactive. So the main function of the trapezius for the horse is to support the bony prominences called the spinous processes, to keep them from clacking together. You've heard of kissing spine, where actually the spine does come together. It causes a lot of pain. So the universe has designed this horse in a perfect fashion so that as the horse moves, this trapezius primarily keeps the spine in line and keeps it from coming together. Another function of this trapezius is when it contracts, you see he hollows his back. So pretend this horse is standing in the pasture and he's eating his grass, he's happy, and he sees a tiger behind him. He's standing and he throws his head up in the air. He hollows his back and he rotates his pelvis forward so he can kick out whatever's behind him. A very collected horse, which is doing core work, a crunch with a rotated pelvis under, can't really kick anything out, right? So when his head is up and his back is hollow, his pelvis naturally rotates forward. Now, that's important because one of the places we never want the saddle to touch is in this area. Because if the saddle's making contact here, he's hollowing his back. His pelvis is rotated anteriorly, and therefore, he can't do a belly lift. Everybody wants the belly lift. Everyone wants them coming from underneath, and when the saddle touches here, he cannot do it. He can do a belly lift, but when I put pressure here, he can't do a belly lift. So any pressure in this space right here will prevent that.
It's that time again. The Everything Equine Expo is returning to the Southeast Agricultural and Events Center in Lumberton, North Carolina on August 25th and 26th. This year's action-packed expo features a visit from Best of America horseback host Tom Say. Our colt starting competition returns with 6 of the top competitors in the United States. This is sponsored by Pineview Veterinary Clinic. The winner will receive a custom-made saddle and a buckle, not to mention bragging rights. Horses this year are provided by Lost Creek Cattle Company out of Tennessee, and all the horses will be for sale after the event on Sunday. We have amazing clinicians, demos, shopping, and food. This year, we've added a little dancing in the dirt to the program on Saturday night, featuring the Ray Band. We've also added an extreme trail obstacle course competition. Tickets go on sale June 1st. For more information, go to CushingMediaProductions.com and click on Expo. Hope to see you there.
The second muscle that we're going to talk about is the latissimus dorsi. It's a big, meaty muscle right here, and it lays just underneath the trapezius. Catherine's going to come and show us. On us, as well as the horse, it's a working muscle. It is meant to carry weight. It's meant to lift weight. Basically, if she puts her arms up and pulls down, she's going to activate this muscle right here. For the horse, if you can imagine this contracting, it's going to bring his leg back to the body, okay? So sometimes what we see is when someone says to me, oh, it must be pinching the shoulders. Generally, it's pinching right here. And that activates the muscle and makes them do this. Now, when the saddle is sitting in the belly of the muscle on this latissimus dorsi, it can carry weight, and we want the front of the saddle, the tree point, to be laying on this muscle right here. The last muscle that we're going to talk about for saddle fit is called the longissimus dorsi. Sometimes it's also called the erector spinae. So if you see that on Google, it's usually the erector. It is a long, thick belly muscle that goes along the back and attaches into the neck. On us, it runs along each side of our spine, and it's a working muscle but also protects the spine. This is what we want the panels to lay on. So now we're going to talk about wither clearance. There's a lot of things on the internet that say, oh, 2 fingers, 3 fingers, 10 fingers. Nobody knows the truth. So basically, when you have a very high withered horse, we're going to go back to the muscular structure. The blue is the trapezius, and if you recall from earlier, this is a very sensitive muscle. It's a stability muscle, and it cannot carry weight. So we need enough clearance when the saddle is on the horse and girthed up with the rider in that you have 0 interference with this muscle. You should also have 0 interference with the spine. My good rule of thumb, and you should always do this in motion with the rider up, but the first thing you need to check in the cross ties is, can I get my entire hand in the pommel and grab the base of his withers? So that's my rule of thumb for a high withered horse. The reason why I say grab the base of the withers is the most sensitive part of a muscle is the tendon. If you've ever had self-defense class, they'll tell you, just grab somebody right here at the elbow and it'll drop them to the ground. Same with the horse. There's 3 tendinous attachments to the base of the withers. And due to the build of the saddle, the lowest point and the narrowest point goes just right behind the base of the withers. It's called the twist. So my general rule of thumb, just to start out to see if a saddle even remotely has enough clearance, is we put the saddle on. Does it touch the trapezius? And can I get my hand into the saddle without it touching the hard part of the saddle? And can I grab the base of the withers with the saddle on, and does it pinch? If it doesn't pinch, we have a really good start. If it pinches without the rider up and without a girth on, when you add weight and a girth, it's going to be a no-go. Okay, now we're going to talk about wither clearance in relation to the balance of the saddle. How much is too much? If you look at this saddle, it seems very pommel high and cantle low. And most people would say, oh, that is far, far too narrow because the saddle sits like this. However, you always fit the withers first. The withers are sacred. They're very, very sensitive. And you always make sure that those are clear. When I look at this saddle, it has the appropriate clearance. I can stick my hand through the gullet and I can grab the base of the withers and it doesn't pinch. It doesn't touch the trapezius. So what would we do? We raise the back. You never lower the front. You never sacrifice the withers in order to get the rider in balance. You bring the back up. So one of the questions that we've been asked is, can you have too much clearance? The horses today, especially in the eventing world, all have withers like this. In fact, we're seeing horses that have withers that are 13 inches tall, which is remarkable. In my opinion and in my experience, today's standards of building saddles for a horse with extremely high withers, there is no way that you can have too much clearance. The more clearance that you can achieve for a high withered horse, the better the horse is going to perform. For a mutton withered horse, you can have a lot of clearance. The important thing is that you have a balanced saddle.
This is our field of dreams. At the heart of these flowers is a decade of non-GMO crop development, bringing together a community of independent UK farmers who share our belief that we are what we care about. Together, we're cultivating an omega-rich crop that not only supports your horse's health, it also supports the very world that sustains us. With every master batch of ahi flower oil we create, we're providing the richest plant-based, ocean-friendly source of omegas for you and your horse. Ahi flower oil, balanced equine omegas that your horse will love.
So for the mutton withered horses, make sure that your saddle is always parallel to the ground. So if your saddle is sitting like this, you may have a lot of clearance depending on how the tree, the shape of the tree and the shape of the head plate, which we're going to get into in a little bit. But for the high withered thoroughbreds, the true performance horses, you're never going to have too much clearance. So now we're going to talk about gullet width. How wide should the gullet be? It's not just 2 fingers, 4 fingers, 7 inches. I've seen one that's 7 inches wide. So the gullet width is determined by the width of the spine along here. Now, the gullet needs to be wide enough that the spine sits here. Also, that it places the midline of this panel onto the belly of this muscle. So we talked about what is really sensitive in muscles is the tendon, but the next most sensitive thing is the side of a muscle. So if I go like this to him, he's obviously upset. If I go like this to him, he's not as upset. So the gullet only needs to be as wide as the horse's spine and to place the panel right on these 2 blue lines. And you can see that this gullet is about 3.5 to 4 fingers, and it puts this panel directly on this muscle. If you go off of this muscle, meaning it's too wide, what will end up happening is this panel will actually create atrophy on the side of the muscle, and it'll also cause the saddle to roll like this. When the saddle's gullet is too narrow, obviously we put too much pressure on the spine, and you get actually the same symptom. You'll get a lot of rolling side to side.
So some of the points that I'd like to go over that Amanda has already gone over in regards to improper saddle fitting and how it does affect the horses. So we already have some of the muscles drawn here, and as she has mentioned already, the trapezius is a very important muscle, latissimus dorsi, and then the longissimus. And I like to let people know this is where your ribeye comes from. So this is the muscle that runs alongside of the dorsal spinous process. How I explain the dorsal spinous process to folks is that it's like the shark fin. of the vertebrae. So you've got a real tall part, and then you have some fins that come out on the side. That's the transverse process. So the tall ones are the dorsal spinous process. And that's what we don't want to have your saddle fitting on. As you can see from this horse right here, we have white spots. So that's a major indicator that this horse in its past has had a saddle that is fit improperly. So most of the time, I'll have someone call me up and say, I need you to come out and look at my horse chiropractically for the fact that it's not moving or it's bucking, or I put the saddle on and it won't let me cinch him up, and they might be called cinchy. So the thing that I will do is I'd like to see the saddle, because I know some of the points that you need to have for proper saddle fitting. And then I would see if they're sore. If they are sore at the base of the withers, okay, then that is telling me that we have some improper fitting of the saddle, pinching the withers at that point. And then also, if it is lopsided, or you might be lopsided and you might need to see a chiropractor yourself, and if you're lopsided, and then or if your saddle is also lopsided, on how it's putting different pressures on the longissimus dorsi muscle, the ribeye. So with different things, when I like to feel if there's symmetry. I'll look behind them. I'll see how they move. I'll notice that, right now I can see that this horse moves a little bit differently on his right rear. And so I'd use my different blocks. And I would feel how different parts of his spine move and how they flex, and how each vertebrae and its joint, basically I evaluate every joint in the body, starting with the skull and the cervical vertebrae, the thoracic vertebrae, the lumbar vertebrae, and then I also do extremities, because if you don't have a leg or a hoof, you don't have a horse. So I do a full body exam and adjustment.
Are you thinking about a career with horses?
I love this. We love this. I love this. I love this. I love this.
We know. You'll love it too.
Now we're going to talk about why tree sizes are not universal. The number one question I get is, this saddle fitter told me my horse is a medium wide, but you're telling me my horse is a medium narrow. And it really isn't that the other saddle fitter is wrong and that I'm correct. We're actually probably both correct. It's just the differences in how trees are made and the shape of the trees. So you can see here that this is a U-shape pommel. This is the head plate. On this tree, it would be this bell shape right here. This is a German tree. It's actually a Steuben tree. On the Steuben tree and other German trees, the pommel is a bell shape and it never changes. Where the tree points come off comes off down here. So there's actually two hinges in order to close or open the tree. For example, a very narrow tree would be like this. A very wide tree would be like this. So you can see that the pommel on a German tree never changes, and that there's two hinges, so that you can get a different fit than, say, the English tree, or the Italian tree, or the French tree. Basically, anything that is not a German tree is going to be the V shape. With the V shape, you'll notice that there's a hinge right up top. So when they have a wide tree, it widens. And when they have a narrow tree, it narrows. So you can see that on a wide V-shaped tree, you'll have a very wide pommel. On a very narrow V-shaped tree, you'll have a very narrow pommel. So the pommel changes. So now we're going to go to this saddle fitter said, my horse is a medium wide. Pretend this is a terribly drawn horse, but this would represent a horse that has some withers. The saddle fitter in question that's saying it's a medium wide is probably going to be an English saddle fitter, meaning they're fitting a head plate that is a V shape. So you can see if we did a very narrow tree, that we would hit the sides of the withers right here. We can't do that. We talked about earlier that the withers are sacred. We never hit them. So what we do instead is we go a little wider to, say, a medium wide, and then we use something like shoulder gussets, a trap panel, skid row panels to fill in the space to bring the tree up. So where you have excess, something that's not touching, we fill that in with wool. So instead of having the medium narrow that would maybe pinch the withers, we go to a medium wide and we pad it up. Okay, now we're going to talk about the German tree on the same horse. The German saddle fitter will probably say that this very high withered horse is going to be a medium narrow. How can that be? Well, it's definitely the shape of the pommel. You'll recall that the pommel never changes in a German tree. So we have this unique bell shape, and then we have the two hinges that allow the tree points to come down and grab the horse. So we can get a more narrow fit with the German tree and have more clearance without having to pad it up. Now we're going to look at a broader horse. On a broader horse, we will not have to pad the V-shaped tree up. Notice that if the withers are not prominent, we don't have to really worry about pinching the trapezius and pinching the spine. So the V-shaped tree will actually fit the broader horse quite well. Whereas if we have a very fat halflinger or something that is broader than, say, an extra wide, the German tree, while we can still affect fit, we're going to have more clearance than the V-shaped tree. Some riders may or may not prefer that. It's not that we can't fit the horse, it's just the differences in the fit.
Hi, my name is Charles Ramsey from Lost Creek Cattle Company. This is one of our stallions we use. His name's Hairpin Blue Checks. We heel on him. We rope calves on him. We do mounted shooting on him. We raise about 35 colts off of him a year. He's a great individual, good-minded. He can go any direction. Basically, we got about 160 head of horses. We're gonna bring you a set of colts up here to Everything Equine. Probably bring you 6 colts. I'm gonna try to match them up best I can where you'll have a good group of horses to start with. Whether you're looking for a trail horse or a working cow horse, reiner, whatever you're looking for, we probably have him. If you buy anything off this horse right here, he's gonna be good-minded and sure enough have the ability to do what anybody wants to do.
Okay, now we're going to get into what size is your horse. And a saddle fitter will say, what tree? So with Steuben, we have several different trees. And the differences between them are the length of the tree points, among other things. We're going to focus on the length of the tree points first. One of our trees has very short tree points. So say this is from the end of this tree point straight through the withers to the other side is how we measure our tree points. Say this is 31 centimeters, okay? Now, we put a different tree on with longer tree points. The longer tree points come down. Now this is 31 centimeters. You can see that the lower ones, it's much further across. So a 31 with a longer tree point is going to fit much differently than a 31 with a short tree point. So when you're looking for a used saddle, especially with a company that has multiple trees, it's important to get a saddle fitter to help you because a 31 in a short tree point is not going to fit the same as a 31 in a long tree point. So placement of the saddle will affect how wide or how narrow the saddle is. Steuben would like their tree points to nestle right behind the scapula in the dip. So you can see that this saddle right now is level. This is the correct fit. County likes to place their saddles 3 finger widths behind the scapula. So if I move the Steuben saddle back, you can see how the back pops up and the pommel goes down. Now this is an incorrect fit. County saddles need to be fit in the County way, as Steubens need to fit in the Steuben way. So if you're ever confused, call your brand and ask them, where should I put the saddle? Most saddle companies will put it between 1 to 3 finger widths behind the scapula. So now we're going to talk about different types of trees. So we have the old standard laminated beechwood tree, the gold standard for years and years and years. In the 60s, we came out with a polyplastic composite tree that was easier to keep symmetrical. It didn't warp as much with temperature, and it was resistant to breaking. Steuben has come out with a tree similar to that is actually unbreakable. We've actually run over it with our car. So the uniqueness of the Steuben tree is it's a flexible tree, and it's unbreakable. So you can see that when I flex it, it has a nice little flex to it, nice little give. Also, can you put it down a little bit? It's laterally flexible. So this is what we call a flexible tree. The beechwood laminated trees are not flexible, they're rigid. So you can see, I can't really, and if I did, we risk the wood snapping or warping, as this one has done. We've got a cut here. So if I really wanted to, you could hear the wood snapping. And then it's not really laterally flexible.